accurate information about the state of the environment. I think it's actually one of the founding principles behind smart cities. They need to be data-driven. If you want to be optimizing the cities, you need to have information about what's happening there. I will actually break it down into two categories. One would be urban design, so how we are building the cities, planning what's happening there. You need to know what the people there need and what the environment needs. Because if you don't, you end up with a situation like this one. On the left, you can see the urban planners had one idea about what people need in the city, and the people had different ideas. So when you have a situation like this, you need to fix it, of course, right? So, all right, there we go, fixed. The second situation is very similar. The people who designed this area had some idea about the demand, and the demand just doesn't exist. I mean, on the side note, there is no demand that you can like solve with 20-lane highway, right? That just doesn't make sense. So again, we're gonna fix it, and the issue is it's much easier to fix in Photoshop, as I just did, than in reality. So in reality, we probably want to get it right the first time and not end up with this kind of situation. And so, yeah, we are trying to understand what the people need there. The second area is urban management, so day-to-day operations, how the city runs. We need to know what's happening there in order to manage it properly. The only issue is that cities, as you are probably aware, are quite large. So keeping track of what's happening there is a challenge. And one of the solutions for these challenges, as is kind of indicated by the thing happening in the background, are Earth observation data. So that's satellite images, aerial images, drone images. Basically, they allow you to very quickly and efficiently get a full scan of the area and understand what's happening there. So in this case, for example, I can zoom in to whichever location I want and have a look at the infrastructure, for example, or the state of vegetation, state of buildings, whatever kind of area I am interested in. So does this solve our problem? Can we get the information about what's happening in cities? Well, let's try to put it into practice. Imagine you are a tax sort of inspector, and your job is to verify the tax returns of people in a city. So you can go to physically visit all of the locations. That takes too much time. That's not efficient. Thanks to satellite data, you can, like from the comfort of your desk, you can verify these things. But still, if you are doing this manually, even in this suburban area, there's plenty houses. And this is just a small piece, right? So you are going to be looking at these large areas. So if you are doing it manually, either you're going to spend too much time or too many people doing it. So the issue that you come up with here is that even though you can look anywhere you want, thanks to satellites, you can't look everywhere. And so you are kind of out of luck. So what's the solution there? Well, even though you specifically can't look everywhere, we have these helpers who can do it for us. They are computers. I mean, in the past it was not so simple. Processing images, not very good for computers, but thanks to AI, we can do this. Specifically part of AI called computer vision. So they can process visual images and do tasks like, for example, object detection. I can tell there is a squirrel in this image. Well, computer can tell it for me. We can do image segmentation, so tell exactly what's the surface area of the squirrel. I don't know if that's very useful, but you can do that. And then another area would be the change detection. So I have a series of images, and I identify what happened there, and identify the reason behind the change, right? And so we can then combine these two technologies and put them into practice. So we'll start with some solutions we did for cities specifically. I talked about property taxes, so let's start with that one. Basically, the idea here is to identify discrepancies. Well, it's going to get all laggy, but basically the idea is that we start with cadastral data and with tax records, and we overlay them with aerial or satellite image. So we have all the houses here. Now what we need to do is to identify them, which we do with AI, and also to identify some metrics about them. So, for example, this is the square, the area of the buildings. We can get the type, the size, all kinds of informations. Once we have that, we can just go and overlap it with the tax records, with whatever kind of data the municipality has, and very quickly identify all the discrepancies. They can be then acted upon. So we deployed this in Bratislava, for example, where I am based, and we found in some areas as much as 40% of declarations by people, tax returns, were incorrect. So this is a huge sort of source of resources for the city that needs to be properly managed. Another very similar use case is related to rainwater management. So in some areas you are trying to incentivize people to build less covered surfaces, because when you have covered surfaces, the rainwater is directed into sewer system that leads to floods. It cannot replenish the groundwater, so we want to incentivize people. There are fees basically based on the amount of impervious surface. The issue is there is no register of impervious surfaces. So again, we use AI to automatically identify surfaces from the image. As you can see here, highlighted in purple, those are impervious surfaces like concrete surfaces, roofs and everything, and highlighted in green, those are your vegetation, bare soil, stuff like that. If we have a layer like this, again, we can just very easily cross-check it with the records the company has or the city has and get a list of discrepancies. Again, the whole process is automated and we can manage it end to end. All right. As you can also maybe notice, these two use cases are very similar. So we process the same images in the same way. The only difference is that we trained the model, the AI model, to do different things. So in this case, it's identifying the surface type, but in this case, it's identifying just the buildings, right? So it's the same process, so you can very quickly build these new solutions for cities. I will jump into another use case, which is a great thing about satellites, is that you don't have just one image, you have a series of images, because these satellites are constantly orbiting Earth. And so you can use that to do real-time monitoring or to detect change. So for example, if you are managing some construction, you can use, there is a satellite even that has daily revisit rate, which allows you to identify construction projects. So and if the city has problem with illegal buildings, for example, you can use this to automatically identify these when they start, when you have still time to do something about that. You will generate report alerts for the city, and they can act upon these discovered discrepancies. So now you might be wondering, isn't this just a little bit too much, right? Spending all this effort on detecting buildings and stuff. What's the need? So I will do a little intervention. I will do a little quiz. So these are data from Bratislava, actually, official cadastral tax records. Can you tell me what this is? This is a picture in Bratislava, and this is, according to official tax record, what is this? Is this a house, garden, or a garage? Anyone cares to guess? No, you are not correct, unfortunately. It's garden. According to official records, this is garden right now. Let's do next one. What is this? Vineyard, road, or house? Vineyard, yes, you are absolutely correct. It's vineyard. Yeah, it's clear. You are getting into it. All right, and this one, vineyard, garden, or farmland? Yes, you are correct. This is farmland. And this is all real data that we have in Bratislava that's used for tax purposes, right? Second type of example, we want to know what's the area highlighted here. And for reference, you have this is 150 meters square. So what's the area here? Yes, of course, it's 93, right? Let's do the next one. This area, and for reference, this is 275 meters squared. What is the area? It's 20, of course. And the last one, this is difficult because all of the options are wrong. According to official records, this has 0 meters squared. Like this house has 0 meters, it's perfectly fine. Official records, yeah, it's fine. No need to pay taxes. So, as you can see, the need is there to do these things, to do the inspections. Because if there is no way for city to verify these declarations, well, people are going to find a way to sort of circumvent them. All right. So that was related to urban management mostly. Let's now get into the urban design. So if you want to do any kind of intervention, you need to understand what's the situation in the city. And there are many different factors affecting the decision. And a lot of these factors you can collect thanks to satellite data, aerial data, drone data. So, for example, if we were to do some intervention, we can collect a bunch of information remotely thanks to Earth observation data. So we can start with a scan or an image, and we can use that to derive the information about land use. What's the sort of use of the land? We can use it to identify buildings, get information about the type of building, what is happening there, and then there are layers that's going to help us to identify the sort of livability. So in this case, I highlighted the temperature. So if the city is overheating too much, it's not very nice for the people, leads to all kinds of problems. So you need to manage that. Or we can look at the pollution. So again, there are these factors. For example, here probably there is a big road, that's a source of pollution. There might be some industrial facility up in the corner, that's a source of pollution. Again, one piece of the puzzle. And we can also have a look, for example, at the vegetation. And so then when we have all these different factors, it allows us to design more, let's say, well, smarter interventions. Whatever we do is going to work better for the people and for the environment. And I'm not an urban planner myself, but let's say some of the interventions, maybe if there's too much pollution, we could plant some trees around the road. I have no idea. As you can see, I did this in paint, so it's probably not a good idea. My job is to get you the data, and then the urban planners, urban designers can use the data to do their decision making smartly, right? So we could do, for example, remove the industrial thing that's doing the pollution. We can improve the sustainability with some solar panels. And also, the next level would be, if we have all this data, this big data, we can train the AI to basically assess the efficiency of the interventions. So do a what-if analysis, right? I basically try, okay, what would happen if I increase the amount of vegetation here? And the AI would be able to tell me, okay, this is how it's going to affect the temperature, the pollution, and all of these different factors. So that's the goal. All right, I'm now going to jump into a couple solutions that are related to urban planning. So one of them is related to sustainability and solar power generation. Basically, the main issue currently that's stifling the use of renewables is uncertainty. When you want to invest into renewables, the issue is that you don't know what exactly is going to be the production level there. So what we are doing, we are using, again, remote sensing data to monitor various kinds of parameters that are going to affect the efficiency of your project. So that could be the local weather, the panel placement, and the surrounding areas. So we use satellite images like these ones to get the information about the local weather patterns. So how many clouds do you have? How many cloudy days, for example? Stuff like that. And then we work with a 3D scan of the area. You can get that from plane or from drone. Looks a little bit like this. And what we do, we first identify all the buildings or the suitable locations, so such as rooftops. And for each of them, we identify the slope, the orientation, all the obstacles. Basically, that allows us to tell you what is going to be the power that you will be able to produce there. And we can also calculate the exact amount of solar radiation received by each of these surfaces, because the position of the sun is known thousands of years ahead. So we can calculate very precisely how much radiation will be received by each of the surfaces. Based on that, as a result, you get a list of all the locations in the area, and you can then prioritize. You can get a list of, let's say, top 5% locations, and you can do the investment. If you are, for example, a city, plenty buildings there that you can use, you will get the information that you need. All right, and we even have this sort of dashboard that allows you to interact with the data. So for example, here the base layer would be let's see here, the base layer would be the information about solar radiation. The brighter it is, the more solar radiation it will receive throughout the year. The darker, that's somewhere in the shade, it's going to be less solar radiation. We also take into account the slope, for example, as you can see here, and the orientation. That's an important factor as well. And so once we have that, we can look at individual roofs, for example. In this case, so some of the roofs are highlighted. I will select one of them, and down here, I get all the parameters I need to get the information about what's the potential there, right? So the power that can be installed, what's the expected outcome, all of that. Also, I get information about local weather. So here is a graph, for example, of cloudy days, and also the percentage of cloud cover in that specific area. And another fun graph that I like here is going to be shown just now, and that's a visualization of the amount of solar radiation throughout the year. So in spring or in winter, the shadows are going to get much longer, so you can really see it for yourself how this is going to look like in practice. All right, and another solution related to urban planning is the urban heat report. How many of you know the concept of urban heat islands? Not much, yeah. Happens most of the time when I ask about this. Basically, all of us know this concept that if you build too much like concrete in cities, it's going to get warmer there. If you remove vegetation, it's going to get warmer. But the whole problem is much more complex. There are different factors affecting it. So if you really want to manage this, and you really do, because it's going to have all kinds of negative effects. If your cities get too hot during these heat waves, you need the data. And so for that, we are again using satellite data. There are these special satellites that allow us to basically monitor the temperature of cities. So here we developed this website called Urban Heat Report. And here you can see one of the satellites that we are using. This is very good because it has daily revisit rate. But the issue is that the resolution is not that good. But we can use the data to identify. As you can see here, we can compare different districts, for example, get you the hotspots in the city that you can then do something about. There is also another satellite called Landsat 8. You can see the comparison of those two satellites here. This visualization is showing the same area, same day on one of the satellites. The one that's highlighted here, that's the high resolution one. So you really then can compare individual even streets, not just districts, right? So we can get a visualization like this one, where you really have a map that's animated throughout last, I don't know, 5-6 years. You really can see what was the heat profile of each area in the city. You can zoom in and you can see it for yourself. That's the sort of biggest value of this kind of data, because you can then really do something about these things. All right, let's move on. So I was talking about these urban heat islands. Also, I would say a nice visualization here is that they are called heat islands because they are areas that are warmer than their surrounding area. They are heating up too much. And this visualization works a lot with that, because currently I'm filtering the areas that are cold and leaving only the hot areas. It's a bit like raising the sea surface level, and only the islands remain. In this case, only the heat islands remain. As you can see here, we can zoom in. That's the worst heat island in Bratislava. That's where we are based. That's the city that we started with. And we can change the satellite view, and we can see this is a large shopping center with huge parking lots. That's managed like especially bad. So we can see this is the worst place to be in the summer when it's too hot. And then the question may be, this is a map that I like especially because it really shows you highlighted the heat spots and cold spots. And I mean, I'm a map nerd, so I really like this map, of course. But I think the real power here is that you can see it for yourself. So we humans, well, we can work with worksheets or like spreadsheets and stuff, but that's not going to give you the level of understanding that a satellite picture like this one will give you. You can see for yourself, okay, these are the heat spots, and you can even see the sort of possible causes of that. So that's the huge power of this solution. We are also combining different sort of sources of geospatial data to identify possible causes. So for example, these are the typical problems. So we are, for example, looking at the surface type in the area we get from OpenStreetMaps, and you can see the heat profiles for different surface types throughout the city. Obviously, the water and forest are going to have the best sort of temperature profile. And also we are looking at vegetation, so we are using different satellite that allows us, thanks to the infrared sort of range, identify the density and health of vegetation. And when we do a comparison there, it's here actually, you can see a clear relationship there. If the vegetation sparsity increases, the temperature increases as well. This is obviously nothing groundbreaking. I would probably talk a little bit about why should we care about this. So there is a human cost attached here. So there are these heat-related illnesses, and with each degree you go up, you have an increasing number of even deaths related to high heat. So there is a good reason to manage the heat properly. And it's all about design. You can do, I mean, relatively small interventions, and the area becomes much more resilient to large temperature increases. And also, it's about wasting energy. If you have too warm area, you are going to be running the air conditioning too much, and you are going to be wasting a lot of energy and releasing CO2 into the atmosphere. So, not great. All right. The final thing I would like to highlight, I'm not going to go into it, We have this mini game there, so you can visit our website and play it for yourself. We selected some locations that have and collected their heat profiles. So this is a satellite image of heat in New York, for example, and your goal is to identify locations only based on the heat profile. So in this case, you are trying to find the Central Park based on the heat profile. It's pretty easy, right? I'm going to give you a clue. It's over here. You can see it's darker than surrounding areas because you have all the vegetation there. It's going to be colder. In some other examples, we have areas that are going to get hotter. Try it for yourself. I don't want to give it out too much. All right. So we also discuss various solutions for these problems. But at the end of the day, different areas are going to have different combinations of solutions that you need to do there. Our goal here is to give the people who are designing cities the information they need to design the interventions that will lead to more sustainable, more resilient cities. And also, why we created this whole website with visualization is to educate people. So, as you can see for yourself, most people don't have the concept of urban heat islands. They are not familiar with it. So we are trying to create something that's accessible for people, where they can see for themselves what's going on, and then they can basically make sure that change happens. All right, those are the solutions I wanted to talk about, combining satellite data and AI. Please, if there are any questions or if you're interested, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Adam. That was impressive indeed. And some use cases that you wouldn't think about. So are there any questions from the audience? Well, I give you a minute to think about more questions. I have one question of understanding about the solar potential. You said you provide the data, so you would provide a city authority with the data and with the information where there are the roofs, where there is potential for more solar. How would city authorities then work with the owners of these buildings, assuming these are privately owned buildings? How do they work and what do they do?
So there are two different types of clients here. So in some cases, the client would be city, and the city is managing, I don't know, hundreds of buildings, so all the schools, all the utility stuff like this. So they really care only about those. So that would be one application. We are talking about the specific buildings that the city owns, and the other applications is incentives. So you have these government programs that are incentivizing building of solar panels. So again, to ensure that the funds are spent as in an optimal way as possible, you can do this scan for a whole city, and when the people apply for the subsidy, they will be assessed based on the potential for their specific area. It can also be used to do a sort of proactive campaign. We can do the scan for a whole city and then send a letter to the person, to the owner. Look, this is, we did this like a remote scan. This is the specific potential for your specific roof. That is much better, let's say, much better marketing than just saying, okay, just do solar, it's fun, it's great. When you send the hard numbers, it is much better incentive.
Okay, thank you very much. Makes sense. So, in the meantime, any more questions to Adam? It seems that this is not the case. So, I would like to thank you very much. Very good presentation.
Thank you.